Hello there, Daniel Onion Grave 64, Civil Onion here, based upon how you know me. Time for Pokemon of the Week yet again, and this week it's all about Volcarona, or Ulgamoth if you like the Japanese translation, number 637 in the Pokedex. And it is a very interesting Pokemon for me to talk about, because it's a fire and bug type, which within the family tree of Volcarona it is unique to it. So we get to have some interesting type weaknesses and resistances to discuss, as well as how we can use it throughout the set. It's in the OU tier. It's a very commonly used competitive Pokemon, and the reasons for this: look at its base stats. With a base HP of 85, that's deceptively high for a Pokemon that you would think, based upon its types, would be all about the offense. But indeed, Volcarona can do more than that. As you can see from its base stats, it has some very high stats indeed. Its base speed of 100 puts it in the ballpark to go first almost always, and its special attack at base 135 is incredibly potent, going off to stab types that are very powerful and are very good on the offense in particular. Its special defense though at base 105 is still very good. Put that into conjunction with the reasonably good HP and you've got pretty good special defense going all round. And even though its physical defense is only base 65, it's not as awful as most glass cannons would be, and Volcarona can prove with its almost unique move that it is not a glass cannon, but instead a Pokemon that can wreck face and have some defense at the same time. Because it's fire and bug type, it has three weaknesses. It has a weakness to flying, it has a weakness to rock, and a weakness to water. However, its weakness to rock is a quadruple weakness, being that both its part types are weak to rock, and what that means is it's quad weak to stealth rock. That means that it takes 50% damage when switching into stealth rock. Better plan to dodge that if you're using this Pokemon. It has resistances though, 5 of them in fact. They are to bug, fighting, grass, ice and steel. The grass resistance is a quad resist. And overall they're pretty useful resistances. The resistance to fighting in OU is very important given the prominence of that type. And being resistant to ice is always good because almost every Pokemon's cover type is ice because of the fear of being destroyed by dragons. It has two abilities. One you'll see much more frequent than the other. Swarm is the more common one. It raises bug type moves when your HP drops. Flame Body is a contact based ability that can cause burns. Obviously with a reasonably poor physical defense you're not going to see Flame Body too often, but it's not completely non-existent on the competitive front. It's just if you're seeing a Volcarona, assume it has Swarm. So Volcarona has so many options that rather than putting in the traditional 3 sets out for Pokemon of the Week, I've had to do 4. And we're going to start with the first set, which is the first way you can utilise the sun, because Volcarona loves 2 types of weather in particular, but the sun is the key one and the most commonly abused weather effect on Volcarona. What you do is you use Quiver Dance. Quiver Dance raises your speed and both special stats by 1 stage each time you use it. It's basically a Calm Mind on steroids. Now once you boost up and can then destroy the world with your incredible attack power and ability to go first, you can choose your moves of choice attacking. Bug Buzz is almost mandatory because it's the best bug type special move going by a country mile. Your choice of Fire Stab though is a very interesting one. Fire Blast has base power 120 without the stab, so 180 with, and has a chance of burn. Fiery Dance is 33% weaker than Fire Blast, but does have a 1 in 2 shot, assuming it hits, of raising your special attack by 1 stage. And if you're going to do maths on that, that means that once your Fiery Dance has made your special attack go up the 1 time, the 2 attacks will do identical damage. So whether you want the ability to hit quickly and powerfully straight off the bat, or whether you want to boost further as you go is the important factor there. I personally prefer Fire Blast because you're using Quiver Dance to boost anyway, and by the time that you've used a Quiver Dance or 2, you want to destroy things as quickly as you can. The cover move is an interesting choice. Giga Drain means you can heal as you go, and as you may have noticed from this set, you have no way of healing otherwise. And if you've decided to use a Life Orb, which is arguably the most common item for this set, Giga Drain does give you a way of healing while at the same time taking consistent damage from your held item. However, it's not the only choice for your cover move. Hidden Power Ground is also a very good choice. Main reason for this is that it hits Heatran. Heatran will be a Pokemon that can hard counter almost every single Volcarona set that utilises the sun. But Hidden Power Ground, assuming that Heatran is not floating on an air balloon, is one way of getting around this. Obviously, this can also get around potentially heat-proof Bronzongs, which are reasonably rare, but you do see them from time to time. And anything that could be using an Occa Berry will obviously, if it's a steel type, usually have a weakness to ground as well. Things like Skarmory being a notable exception to that. So it does give you a bit of versatility on that front. It has to be said that Bug and Grass is not very good for type coverage, so Hidden Power Ground is a very good alternative to Giga Drain. Nature-wise, you'll see this almost consistently throughout every set. The choice between Timid and Modest is going to be there on all of them. There's not a right and a wrong nature for Volcarona on this set. The reason that I put both up is because base 100 speed is a pretty common speed, especially in the OU tier. And rather than base 80 being the benchmark in most tiers, base 80 speed is not the benchmark for speed in OU, it's higher than that. So getting Timid can sometimes prevent you having to have speed ties with other base 100 Pokemon. Modest, however, does mean you can hit much more firmly and much more vigorously. So the choice is really very much up to how fast your team is and what requirements you need. Swarm is obviously going to be the ability here because you do not want to be hit physically because your physical defense is pretty pants in comparison to your special one. And Swarm does give you a bit of a bonus to your Bug Buzz once your HP is depleted sufficiently. Item wise though, I am a big advocate of Expert Belt, as you know if you've watched a lot of this series. Expert Belt boosting your attack power by 20% if it's super effective without taking recoil damage is very tasty indeed. But the other alternative is the Lumberry, because if you get paralysed, this set becomes very useless very quickly. And a Lumberry will obviously prevent that, and it'll prevent sleep as well, which can happen on the fly, rather than just using the specific paralysed resistant berry. By and large though, if you're seeing this set and you think this set has come up against you, the Life Orb is the very predictable and normal usage. EV wise, it's exactly what you'd expect. You maximise your special attack and speed. The remaining 4 might as well go in special defense because Quiver Dance boosts that as well. Stealth Rock, as I have put in the note there, if you're facing this set, you must get Stealth Rock up. And if you have a phaser, i.e. something that can roar Whirlwind Volcarona out, this is a very, very effective way of taking it out. You don't even have to attack it directly. And just as another note, there are defensive versions of this set. They're not quite as common as this version, but they do exist and they're notable enough to have me talk about them. They tend to drop the cover move in favour of using Roost, and these are very effective in their own right. Obviously these are better in teams where you might have another choice of special sweeper that's something similar. Obviously a Pokemon like Starmie can run in a very similar way to Volcarona, just with a different typing. So often defensive versions of this will go alongside a Pokemon like that. So do bear in mind that when you see Volcarona, they're not all going to go straight off the bat to hit you as hard as possible. The IVs I put there for you are for Hidden Power Ground. You don't have to reduce your speed to get Hidden Power Ground, so that's one advantage of using it. So we move on to the second way of utilising the sun. And this is the best one, as I put in the second note there, to deal with rain teams without having to utilise the rain. You can take the rain and shove it up their backsides and put sun up yourself. You can use a Heat Rock in conjunction with this to make your sun last 8 turns, but the more important fact here is that you can remove the rain rather than how long indeed your sun can last. Sunny Day and Quiver Dance are definitely going to be standardised for a set like this. But the other 2 moves are a bit more open for debate. Obviously, if you're making it sunny, Fire Blast gets a 50% bonus from the sun. So common sense would be to use that. You could use any fire move really within reason. But the last move is a very interesting one. A lot of Volcaronas run Roost. If you're guaranteeing the sun, use Morning Sun. You'll heal more than Roost using it. The only downside is that if the weather is anything other than the sun or a neutral effect, Morning Sun does not heal very much HP whatsoever. You'll want to run Timid on this because you need to guarantee that once you've used 2 Quiver Dances, you can stop Choice Specs, or Choice Scarf rather, based 110 speed Pokemon, of which there are quite a few. Espeon and Gengar are just a couple of examples. at +2 Volcarona can outspeed these and KO both of them in one hit. So that's a very good way of covering choice Scarfers in general. This is the one time you'll see Flame Body as the ability as well. Because you're not running a bug type move, there's no point having Swarm. So Flame Body can be there, but if you're being hit physically multiple times, enough to cause a burn on the opponent, you're not going to have lasted the course, so do be very careful. For EVs, maximising your physical defence just in case you do get hit physically. The 16 there is just to make sure you can outspeed choice Scarf users at base 110 +2, and the rest can go in HP because you want to become as bulky as physically possible. Like I said, Heat Rock is going to generally be a smart idea, but if you want just general HP recovery, you can always run Leftovers. So we go on to the third set, and this is a set that's a bit different to normal for Volcarona because this is a set that embraces the rain. And you may think as a part fire type, why on earth would you want to do that? Well, there's a very good reason for this. Volcarona gets Hurricane. Hurricane is a flying type move that's accuracy is regularly 70%, but it goes up to 100% when it's raining. And flying is actually quite a rare type as an attacking option in OU or in any tier for that matter. So having a flying type move is fantastic, especially because OU is inundated with fighting types. And obviously fighting types are not bothered by bug, and odds are you won't be running fire on a set that's designed to feature in the rain. It's an option alternatively over Hidden Power Water, but I think it's a very poor idea, so I've not even put it on the page for you. Hidden Power Water though does have a problem. The default for Hidden Power Water on simulators reduces your speed, and you do not want this because it means you will lose all speed ties. So when you are designing this Pokemon, make sure that the IVs are what I've put there, because those IVs will give you a maximum power Hidden Power Water without reducing your speed. So that is a very important thing to point out when you're designing the Pokemon. Bug Buzz is there for your standardised stab move of choice because obviously it is unaffected by the rain. And Quiver Dance is always going to be on most Volcarona sets for the simple reason that it can sweep very, very well. I'm actually going to show you a way that you can get around using Quiver Dance just to be a bit more unpredictable. IV wise, as I said, the 13 special attack really does not hinder you as much as you would think. It's much better to have a 30 in there than a 30 in speed, put it that way. The EVs are very predictable. They're exactly the same as the previous, the first set that I've talked you through. The nature again is completely up to you. I am a person that almost always runs Timid on Volcarona, but there's nothing wrong with running Modest. Item wise though, you get a lot of choices with this set, much more than normal. Life Orb could arguably be the most common set item for this. However, Leftovers is not a bad choice. It is not quite as aggressive as the first set when it comes to being attacking, but it is quite a bit more versatile, and it is a Pokemon that can make rain teams definitely more versatile, if only in its typing, because obviously putting a fire type on a rain based team is a rarity, but it's not necessarily a negative move in this case. Leftovers as a result can be used to ensure that Volcarona can last a bit longer. I love Expert Belt on this set however, because a lot of Pokemon that will come in on you that are comfortable in the rain are weak to Hurricane, and as soon as they see the rain they will pretty much assume that you don't run a fire type move, so obviously grass and bug types will get destroyed by Hurricane very, very quickly. So we'll move on to the final set. We're trying to rattle through these because there's 4 of them, and this is the set that attempts to utilise Volcarona without using Quiver Dance, and you may say, why on earth would you want to do this terrible thing? Simple reason is because people will predict Quiver Dance, and you can attack on the turn that people would assume you'd be setting up and catch a lot of people out. Fire Blast against Fiery Dance is up to you. Again in this set I would prefer Fire Blast, but there is more reason to use Fiery Dance on this set than any of the rest, because getting a +1 will mean your Bug Buzz will do a hell of a lot more damage. Your cover move though is a very interesting one. Giga Drain is there yet again. Hidden Power Water is there, despite the fact that it's not a rain team that you're likely going to be using this on. Simply because water is a very useful type to have. A lot of Pokemon that set up Sandstorm, for example, will normally destroy Volcarona, and this gives Volcarona a way of fighting back. Giga Drain is there as well as an alternative for that issue. Finally though, there's Psychic. And Psychic is not a very common cover move on Volcarona at all, but it is one way for it to be able to deal with fighting types. If you're going to plan and the rain does indeed happen, Psychic gives you more versatility against fighting types that would normally be neutral against fire, but obviously fire would be nerfed in the rain. So it does give you a bit of a versatility factor in that regard. Roost is the final move, and this set should be pretty reminiscent of a Starmie set in its layout, because obviously Starmie can very frequently go for 3 attacks plus recover. So if you've used a Starmie before in that way, you can use this Volcarona very effectively too. Having a 3 attack set, it relies on going first, so I would normally again say put Timid on this, but Modest is an option. And definitely, if you're not going first, you're probably going to not win the engagement, so do be aware that you may need to switch out much more than you would otherwise. I hope you found this useful. I've had to blast through these at a great pace. Hope you found it good. Please comment. I do like to hear from you people. It's not just a one-way system of me talking to you. I want to hear feedback from you. Thank you very much in advance.